There's a fear running your life right now, not the obvious kind, not fear of failure, not fear of rejection, not fear of risk. Those are surface fears. This one hides deeper, so deep that you don't even call it fear. You call it being realistic, responsible, careful, but it's fear, and it's been making your decisions for years. The hidden fear controlling your life is the fear of being exposed as unfinished. Not wrong, unfinished. You're afraid of being seen before you're ready, before you're polished, before you've figured it all out. So you delay, you wait, you prepare, you improve quietly, you tell yourself you're being smart. But what you're really doing is protecting an image. The image of someone who has it together. That image matters more to you than progress. And that's why nothing moves. This fear doesn't scream, it whispers. It says, not yet, soon. Once I'm better, once I'm sure. Those words feel harmless. They're not. They are how fear keeps control without being detected. Here's the truth most people never face. You're not scared of failing. You're scared of trying publicly. Failing privately is fine. Failing where no one sees, no problem. But failing while being watched? That threatens identity. So you stay invisible. You work in the shadows. You tell yourself you'll show up when you're ready. Ready is a lie this fear tells to buy time. And time is the only thing it needs to win. Here's how this fear forms. From a young age, you learn that mistakes come with judgment, grades, comments, comparison. You learned that being wrong had consequences. So you adapted. You became careful. You learned to hide uncertainty. You learned to polish before presenting. That worked in school. It fails in life because life rewards iteration, not presentation. But your nervous system never updated. So now, every time you consider taking action, your body reacts as if you're about to be graded, judged, ranked. You don't consciously think this. You feel it. A tight chest, a pause, a second thought. That's the fear. It's not asking, what if I fail? It's asking, what if people see me trying? That question controls more of your life than you realize. It controls what you post, what you say, what you start, what you abandon early. Because being seen mid-process feels unsafe. So you only want to be seen at the finish line. But there's a problem. There is no finish line. Progress doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through visibility, and you're avoiding visibility. So progress never compounds. Here's another layer of this fear. You don't want to disappoint the version of yourself you pretend to be. You have a self-image, competent, capable, put together. Starting something new threatens that image because beginners look clumsy, uncertain, slow. So instead of becoming a beginner, you stay a thinker. Planning feels safe. Learning feels safe. Consuming feels safe. Executing feels dangerous because execution exposes gaps, and gaps threaten identity. So you avoid execution. You say you're waiting for confidence. Confidence never comes because confidence is built after exposure, not before. This is the trap. The fear controlling you tells you that safety comes from readiness. It doesn't. Safety comes from tolerance. Tolerance for discomfort. Tolerance for imperfection. Tolerance for being seen while still forming. You don't have that tolerance yet, so fear stays in charge. Now let's talk about how this fear disguises itself. It disguises itself as perfectionism. I just want to do it right. It disguises itself as patience. I don't want to rush. It disguises itself as humility. I'm not ready for that yet. Those sound like virtues. They're not. They're avoidance with better branding. Perfectionism is fear of exposure. Patience is fear of timing judgment. Humility is fear of claiming space. You're not humble. You're hiding, and hiding feels responsible. Until you look back and realize how much time it cost you. This fear also controls your ambition. You want more, but not at the cost of looking foolish. So you aim lower than you could. You choose goals you know you can hit. You stay within your comfort zone. And then you wonder why life feels flat. Because you traded growth for image protection every time. Now let's talk about the social layer. This fear is reinforced by people around you. They reward polish. They praise certainty. They question experimentation. So you learn quickly. Don't move until you can explain it. Don't start until it makes sense. Don't commit until success is likely. Those rules feel safe. They guarantee mediocrity. Because nothing new looks sensible at the start. Everything new looks awkward. If you wait until it looks respectable, you're already late. But you don't want to be early. Early means exposed. Early means no proof. Early means no protection. So you wait. And waiting becomes your personality. You tell yourself, I'm just cautious. I like to think things through. But notice something. You don't hesitate on small, meaningless things. You hesitate on things that matter. Things that would change how you see yourself. Things that would change how others see you. That's not logic. That's fear managing risk. Here's the cost you don't see yet. Every time you avoid exposure, you reinforce the belief. It's safer to hide than to try. That belief compounds. Your confidence shrinks. Your courage weakens. Your threshold for discomfort lowers. So over time, you hesitate more, not less. That's why acting feels harder now than it did years ago. Not because you're weaker, because you trained avoidance. Now, let's talk about identity collapse. You secretly fear that if you try fully and it doesn't work, you'll have to confront a painful thought. Maybe I'm not as capable as I believed. So, you never try fully because partial effort protects identity. If it fails, you can say, I didn't really try. That sentence saves ego, but it destroys growth. High performers risk identity collapse early. They allow reality to correct their self-image. You protect self-image at all costs, so reality never gets a chance. And without reality, growth is impossible. This is why this fear is so powerful. It doesn't stop you, it slows you. It keeps you almost starting, almost committing, almost changing, almost feels safe, almost feels productive. Almost is where dreams go to die quietly. Now here's the hardest truth. You're not scared of losing. You're scared of finding out what happens if you really commit, finding out who you are without excuses, finding out what you're capable of. Because if you find out and it's less than you hoped, you can't hide behind potential anymore. Potential is comfortable. Potential is flattering. Potential doesn't demand proof. Action does. So you stay potential. And potential never becomes reality without exposure. This fear also explains why you quit early. The moment something forces you to be seen, to be measured, to be judged, you leave. Not because you failed, because staying would mean exposure. So you tell yourself, this isn't for me. No, it was just uncomfortable. Now, let's talk about how this fear shapes your thinking. You overvalue preparation. You undervalue iteration. You want the plan before the step, the map before the walk, the certainty before the move. But clarity comes from motion, not thinking. You've reversed the order, so clarity never arrives, and fear stays in charge. This is why advice doesn't help you. You already know what to do. You just haven't built tolerance for being seen, doing it imperfectly. That's the missing skill. Not motivation, not discipline. Tolerance for exposure. Tolerance for being a beginner. Tolerance for judgment. Until you build that tolerance, fear will keep running your life. Quietly, politely, reasonably, and you'll keep calling it logic. Because once you see the fear, you can't unsee it. And the only way to take control back is not to eliminate the fear, but to outgrow it. You don't beat this fear by getting rid of it. You beat it by changing what it protects. Right now, the fear protects your image, your reputation, your sense of being competent, your story about who you are. As long as that's what it's guarding, it will never leave. Because its job is to keep you safe from judgment. So, instead of fighting the fear, you change the rule. You stop protecting image. You start protecting trajectory. That's the shift. People who escape this fear don't become fearless. They just decide that progress matters more than looking finished. Once that decision is made, fear loses leverage, because it can only threaten what you still care to protect. Here's the first thing that breaks its control. You accept fully that being seen unfinished is unavoidable. There is no path where you grow privately and emerge perfect. That path doesn't exist. Every person you admire was visible before they were impressive. They were awkward, unclear, rough around the edges. You just didn't see that phase, or you forgot it. So you stop trying to skip it. You stop asking, how do I avoid looking bad? And start asking, how do I survive looking bad? That question changes everything. Because survival is a lower bar than perfection. You don't need to win immediately. You just need to stay in the game. Now let's talk about the identity shift that removes fear's power. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must appear capable. You start seeing yourself as someone who trains in public. Training implies mistakes. Training implies repetition. Training implies growth. No one expects a trainee to be perfect. That identity gives you room to move. Right now, you're trying to perform without training. That's why fear is screaming. Performance demands judgment. Training allows error. So, you stop performing. You start training out loud. In the open, that single shift changes how your nervous system reacts. You're no longer being graded. You're practicing. Now here's the rule that dismantles the fear at a behavioral level. Exposure before confidence. Always. You don't wait to feel ready. You don't wait to feel certain. You don't wait to feel good. You act while feeling unsure, not recklessly, deliberately, because confidence is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct. You've been waiting for the reward before doing the work. That's why fear never leaves. Now let's talk about tolerance, because this is the real skill you're missing. Tolerance for discomfort, tolerance for judgment, tolerance for silence. Most people try to remove discomfort. High performers increase their tolerance for it. That's why they look calm in situations that paralyze others. They're not calmer, they're practiced. They've felt this before, so when fear shows up, it doesn't feel new. It feels familiar. And familiar fear is manageable. You build tolerance the same way you build muscle. Small exposure, repeated, consistent. You don't jump into maximum visibility. You choose controlled exposure. You share imperfect work. You speak before you're polished. You act before certainty. And you survive it. Nothing terrible happens. That survival rewires your brain. It learns a new rule. Being seen unfinished is not fatal. Once that rule installs, fear quiets. Not because it's gone, because it has nothing left to protect. Now let's talk about the internal voice that will fight you. It will say, "This is too soon. You should prepare more. You're rushing." That voice is not wisdom. It's image protection. You don't argue with it. You don't reason with it. You acknowledge it and move anyway. Action is the only thing that convinces fear. Thinking never will. Now let's talk about judgment, because this is the fear's favorite weapon. You imagine people watching, critiquing, laughing. Most of that is fiction. But even if it happens, it's survivable. And here's the part you haven't considered. People judge whether you act or not. They judge if you try. They judge if you don't. You can't avoid judgment. You can only choose which one you live with. The judgment of trying or the judgment of stagnation. One leads somewhere, the other doesn't. High performers choose the first. Now let's talk about ego. This fear survives because your ego wants to stay intact. Ego hates beginners. Ego hates mistakes. Ego hates being wrong publicly. So you starve the ego. You stop asking, "How do I look?" You start asking, "Did I act?" That question bypasses ego completely. You measure days by exposure, not performance. Did I show up? Did I share? Did I move? If yes, the day counts. This is how progress becomes possible. Now here's the paradox that finally frees you. The moment you allow yourself to look unfinished, you start finishing things. Because finishing requires starting imperfectly, and starting imperfectly requires exposure. Everything you want is on the other side of being seen mid-process. Now let's talk about quitting, because this fear is why you quit early. The moment something forces you into visibility, you retreat. You say, "This isn't for me." No, it just threatened your image. So you leave to restore comfort. That comfort is expensive. It costs momentum. It costs confidence. It costs self-trust. So instead of quitting, you change the rule. You do not quit during exposure, ever. Exposure is emotional. Emotion distorts judgment. You only reassess during calm, boring, neutral days. That one rule will keep you in the game long enough to grow. Now let's make this practical. Here's the anti-fear framework. You choose one area of your life where you've been hiding. 1. Not everything. Career, creative work, health, communication. Then you define one exposure action. Small, survivable, visible, not impressive, just real. Examples: posting before it's perfect, speaking before you feel articulate, sharing progress instead of outcomes, starting before you feel qualified. You do it repeatedly, not once. Repeated exposure is what trains tolerance. One exposure teaches you it's survivable. Repeated exposure teaches you it's normal. Normal kills fear. Now let's talk about the emotional aftermath. After exposure, you'll feel a crash, embarrassment, self-doubt, overanalysis. That's normal. That's the nervous system recalibrating. You don't fix it. You don't soothe it with avoidance. You let it pass, and it always does. Each time it passes, fear weakens, because fear feeds on avoidance. Starve it, and it shrinks. Now here's the identity that replaces the old one. You stop being someone who needs to be ready. You become someone who moves early. Early movers look foolish at first. Then they look inevitable. Late movers look safe, then they disappear. That's the trade. You choose early discomfort over late regret. Now the final truth. This fear controlled your life because it was never challenged. Not because it was strong, because it was untested. The moment you expose yourself deliberately and survive, the illusion breaks. You realize you were never in danger. You were just unfamiliar with the feeling. And unfamiliarity feels like threat. That's all fear ever was. Now, the final challenge. This is not symbolic. It's behavioral. Within the next 24 hours, do one thing that makes you visible before you feel ready. 1, not dramatic, not reckless, just real. Then do nothing to explain it. No justification, no apology, no backpedaling. Let it exist. That single act starts the rewiring, and once you do it again and again, fear loses its grip. If this named something you've felt but never articulated, leave a comment with one word, seen, and subscribe if you want more of this. Not motivation, not comfort, but the mental shifts that give you your life back, because the fear controlling you was never about failure. It was about exposure. And the moment you stop hiding, it has nothing left to control.